heard, okay, I just heard from Beth and she said the meeting starts at 10. We're a bit early. So there's Gail.
All right.
It says Gail Formanak, but that's not Gail Formanak.
No,
You must be using Beth's account, Gail's account. Hi, Gail. I was pushing the panic button since I was the only one here.
Oh, the meeting actually starts at 10:30. From 10 to 10:30 is a social hour.
Oh, okay. Well then, okay. You know what I'm going to do? I have so much to do today.
Sure.
I am going to stay signed in, but I'm going to turn off my audio and my video, and I'm not going to socialize right now.
I don't blame you. Okay. Very good. We'll see you in a bit.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, is that you, Lynn?
Yes, it's Lynn Miller in Ocala.
Hi, Lynn.
I don't have when I got this computer, it didn't have a microphone or a camera, so I put up an old picture that looked fairly decent, and I'm using my phone.
Wonderful.
Now
Wonderful.
Just so you know, I broke my wrist a couple of months ago, so occupational therapy is coming around 11. So if I have to leave, I'll just split the chat. But I keep forgetting there's a social hour at 10:30. I write it down in my appointment book that it's at 10 o'clock, and then that's it. So, but hopefully we'll get a nice turnout today.
I hope so. Yeah, you're welcome to hang around with us till 10:30. That's when our speaker will start. And
okay.
Well, glad to have you. How did you break your arms?
I fell in the house.
Oh my goodness.
I just slipped in my kitchen floor.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah. No, that's and the next day one of my neighbors tripped over her garden hose, broke her wrist, but she needed surgery. I was lucky.
Oh my goodness.
I guess it's the fun part of the golden years. Your bones aren't as good as they used to be.
Yes, that's it. Yeah,
I'll live through cancer. I'll live through this. It's just very annoying, you know. It's okay now, but it was horrible earlier. So anyway, enough about me. Hopefully we'll get some good voting rights legislation because we have probably one of the sickest governors in the world right here in beautiful Florida.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, we sure do.
I keep writing email. Oh, I'm sorry.
I said, hi, Jeannie. Hi, Carol.
Hello, Mary Kay. Hello, Carol.
Good morning. Hello, Jeannie.
Who was talking?
That was Lynn Miller. She's from Ocala.
Oh, okay. Oh, boy. Yeah. Well, we have to walk sort of with our eyes on the floor these days, on the ground. Make sure we're stepping up, stepping over.
I'm sorry. Yeah, when I had broken a left wrist in the house a couple of years ago, so I became very careful outside. But what happens is you get a false sense of security walking in your own home, and you get lazy, you get foolish, and boom. So now I'm just going to have to walk around like I'm 200 years old and stomp around like Frankenstein because I don't trust my bones anymore. But that's what happened. You know, I was careful outside, and I remember once I slipped in the mud, and I made sure I sat on my ass so I wouldn't hurt my hands, and that was fine. But in the house, I just, boom, went down, and it was a wood floor. So cautionary tale, be careful, watch where you're going, and walk very carefully. I'm just disappointed in my body. I didn't think it would shatter so quickly, so I'm still mad at it, but it's the only one I got, so I'm stuck with it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I hope you're all well, and enough about my crap, you know.
Well, hang in there.
Right.
I will. I am.
Hey, Carol.
Yes.
I'm going to be mentioning you, and I'm going to run the meeting today. Gail can't be here, so we had our civics committee, our civic survey committee, and one of our recommendations was we're going to prepare like a PowerPoint with a video to take to civics classes in our areas, in our counties, to see if they'd be interested in having a day about the importance of being a voter. And then we thought maybe we could ask Carol if she would be willing to share those games that you played with the civics classes, or teach us how to do it, or be willing to be part of that program. Sure. We'd probably go to the civics teachers first just to see if they're interested. Mm-hmm. But we thought that would be a nice way to get into the schools.
Were you saying that you wanted to emphasize the importance of being a voter? Is that what you were saying?
And the importance of voting, and was it that game you played with the students?
Well, there was one game that showed that winner take all effect of the electoral college. Okay. And the other game, Jeannie, help me. What was the other game?
Oh,
there were two games. I wasn't there. Oh, darn it. You were there for the first game. What was the first game? I have to think about that. What did we talk about? See, I went to him, I went to the civics teacher and asked him what he would like for us to do. Uh-huh. And I think that's a better approach, frankly, because remember, civics is taught in 7th and 8th grade. Those kids can't pre-register. So if you're going to emphasize how important it is to be a voter, you're going to miss, there's nothing in their curriculum that would help their teacher if you do that. Because they can't pre-register. Can only pre-register at 16. Now, it isn't that you expect these kids to keep this all in their minds, because they are in 7th and 8th grade after all. But the instructor, the civics teacher, told me the hope is they'll go home and talk about it.
Right.
And the adults will then have some knowledge, will be informed. Okay. So that's another reason why you may or may not want to emphasize the importance of being a voter. You want to talk about something that is going on at the time, or is in their curriculum, is stuff that they're talking about already. Because they have a curriculum, you know, there is a curriculum in Florida for civics, which we should be appreciative of, because in many states, that was one of the first things to go, and it still hasn't come back because it costs money. You know?
Yeah, well, so we have the civics committee did a lot of research, and we've created a report we'll be sharing with you as soon as the board approves it. So it's all conversation to be had. But
well, and the first, I'm remembering that the first thing we did was about the balance of power. That was the first one. I'm not remembering the game, but maybe it'll come back to me.
Yeah.
But that was the first.
Not coming here.
Yeah, that was the first presentation was in the fall, and it was like in September or October, and it was about the balance of power. And I've got a PowerPoint for that, specific to that. And then the second presentation was about the Electoral College and what the Electoral College is and how it works. And that was in the spring, you know, around March, when the, I think the presidential primary was March 17th. So it was around that time that we talked about that.
Well, I'm sure the civics teachers would love to have that, but we'll ask them that we have that available. Would that be something they'd be interested in? That'd be wonderful.
And don't get me wrong, both PowerPoints are both, the second one wasn't a PowerPoint because he didn't want a PowerPoint on the Electoral College, but both programs emphasized how important it is to vote. I'm not saying it didn't. All I'm saying is that wasn't the focus. You know, right. Focus was something within their curriculum.
Yeah. Well, but it never hurts to get the vote in to everybody whenever you can.
Oh, absolutely. And all of these things depend upon, I mean, that's the whole that's the fundamental thing in the democracy, is that it's the will of the voters. So we talked about that throughout, but I'm afraid you'll lose those kids if you talk about just about how important it is to vote, and you don't have it tied to something that's in their curriculum.
Jeannie found a really nice video from TED Talk it's geared right for that age group, and I think that's going to hook them. That was a good one, Jeannie. We like to, do a little mini PowerPoint. Hey, this is why we're here, and then do that TED Talks video. I think that would really.
I did.
Yeah, that was a good one.
When did I do that? Yeah, when did I do that?
Wasn't that from you?
Or did I do that? Are you sure it was me? Hi.
I thought it was. Maybe not.
Okay. Well, things come in this ear and they go out the other ear. So the tunnel is getting bigger, so the stuff goes through more quickly.
I like that. I'm going to have to remember that.
Dreadful. I mean, it's frightening, I'm telling you. But yeah.
Hey, Beth.
Morning, Karen.
Beth, I made you co-host so you can.
You're on.
I've got them. If you can't share,
Good morning.
They're on the bottom of my screen. Gail or whoever will just have to let me share my screen if you need it done.
Okay. And
morning, Seal.
We're going to post the meeting on Facebook live stream.
Before, is Gail in charge?
No, she can't be here today. I'm running.
Oh, you're doing it. Do you know how to do it on Facebook?
No. So she said
okay.
She would be able to. And I've already made you co-host. So you should.
Okay, if I'm co-host, I'll see what I can do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bless you, Beth.
Can I say something talent. About? Can I say something about in the chat? Lynn has said, yes, do it in high school. We don't have an open door to the high schools because the supervisors of elections actually have a mandate to go to the high schools. And so at least in Sumter County, and I don't know if that's the case in Lake, but in Sumter County, they won't let us go to the high school because they do a mock election in the high schools that give the kids an experience with voting and how important it is. And they don't want us coming in and in any way dealing with that. And then in Marion County, they actually have a competition between the high schools for registering voters in the high schools. So I've never asked them if we could go into the high schools, but I doubt they would want us to do that either.
Okay.
So we have to
ask. We can always
it wouldn't hurt to ask. And frankly, the one place I know the least about is Lake County. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if they say, no, we'd prefer you didn't go into the high schools. Because like I say, they have a mandate. It's in the law, in state law, that they must go into the high school.
And in Lake County, Alan Hayes is so active. Gail, Karen can add to that that's one of his big things. He goes into the high school, they make it the competition. They put the signs up, I registered today, they've got pictures. I mean, if you ever want to follow a SOE that's doing it, is they on Facebook, they have just done so many different things with it. It is truly astounding how much publicity he is doing to get the kids involved in it. They send the they send the kids birthday cards when they turn 18 if they've got their driver's license, saying, don't forget, now you can register.
Well, and the civics curriculum is in 7th and 8th grade. It's not in high school.
It's embedded throughout high school in it's social studies and it's in world history, U.S. history. So it is embedded throughout.
Yes, that's true. That's true. It isn't civics specifically, but it is. Yes, they do bring it up in various topics. That's true.
U.S. government class.
Yeah. Yeah, Kim was on the committee too. We were just talking about going into the high schools, Kim, with maybe a PowerPoint, and that TED Talks video, and perhaps using Carol's games. But we'll have a conversation about that at a future date.
Okay.
How are you, Karen West?
I'm just fine, thank you.
Good to see you. Karen was on the committee.
It's wonderful to see you all.
Yeah, Karen was on the committee also.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think Gail has family visiting or something, so she won't.
Yeah, she had a wedding over the weekend up in near Jacksonville, and then some of the family was coming back with her from the wedding.
Well, fun.
Problem is, I have forgotten how to go from how to stream it to Facebook. I can't seem to find the click. You know, I used to just click on something and I can't find it.
There's next to reactions on the bottom of your screen, there's 3 dots that say more.
I don't have that.
You don't have that?
No,
Oh,
I don't have
the
dots.
updated. That's an updated version of Zoom.
No, I used to have them, but the dots are gone.
Huh.
Oh yeah, I don't have dots there.
Okay, I have that.
See, are you sure you've made me a
right.
co-host?
I'll double check.
You're right, there aren't any dots
Yes,
there.
you're not a host, you're a co-host.
Co-host, yeah, I was gonna say not just share screen, co-host, because I don't have the dots.
Huh. Okay, well, I have the dots and it says live on Facebook or live on YouTube. Do I click on live on Facebook?
You click on live on Facebook. But I don't know whether you're going to be able to do it because are you an administrator on the Facebook page?
No, I'm not.
Well, we can't get to Facebook today then. We'll have to just move on.
Oh, well. That's weird. You don't have your little dots.
No, because I'm not, because you have to be signed up for it. Whatever. Can't do everything.
Huh.
I know. Or remember everything.
Yeah, because nobody else has the little dots, do they?
On the bottom of your screen, it says more.
Nope.
Nope.
Only you.
I'm sorry.
I wonder
I'm not an administrator, so I couldn't.
Yeah, you can't get it. We should, that's, like I say, we move on.
All right. Hey, Phil, how you doing?
Good morning, how are you?
Our new vice president.
Phil.
Welcome, Phil. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
And I'd like you all to meet Lynn Miller from Ocala, right, Lynn?
Yes, I am from Ocala. Member of the League of Women Voters in Ocala, which we had for a while. And when I heard about your group, I joined that group, and I got to one live meeting, yay, before COVID.
Hopefully in September.
Yeah. Well, God willing, we'll all be there together. But anyway, I've been a staunch supporter of League of Women Voters, and I remember when I was 18 how excited I was to go to vote. Mother and sister and I went to vote for the first time, and we brought our League of Women Voters newspaper with us so we would know all the facts and what to do, because there were a lot of elections. I lived in New York then, but I've always been a supporter of League of Women Voters, and when I was part of the Marion County group, which unfortunately had to disband because it was just too few people doing all the work. You know the drill.
Oh yeah.
But we used to go to colleges and speak in front of college students and explain to them the value of voting, how voting matters, and particularly for local elections, how it affects the kids and the students locally. I love doing that. But anyway, that's me. Over to the rest of the gang.
Well, welcome. She has been one of the staunchest correspondents with the newsletter box with all the stuff. So it's good to see a face.
Right.
I think we've got somebody else new too, don't we, Karen? Seal?
Seal.
Seal. Yes. Good morning, Seal.
Good morning.
Glad to finally see the faces of the people I write back and forth with.
It is nice to see everybody. And I am in Sumter County, and I'm in the Villages. And I've been here for about, let me think. Oh my gosh, it's going on 15 years. So it's about time I get involved with the League of Women Voters here, and see what I can do to help out.
Well, we're delighted to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
Seal, what village are you in?
Sable Chase.
Okay.
Yep. I love it here.
Louise, or Lynn, excuse me. Are you in contact with other former Ocala, Marion County leaguers who you could encourage to join our group?
I have been trying, of course, with COVID, people are involved in other groups. I'm also involved in some environmental groups and I do a lot of, I did 8 months of phone banking, to get out the vote. But I do encourage a lot of people, I can't make them do it, but, we'll see what happens. Yeah. Some of the former league people in Marion County, they worked very hard. A few of them have passed away. So, we'll have to see. I'm just hoping when things open up a little bit more, I think more live meetings, I'll be able to politely drag a few people to some meetings. So we'll have to see what happens. But I'm still in touch with a lot of people. And I'm in touch with a lot of people because I'm a member of a couple of different groups. So we shall see. I'll do my best.
Well, the positive about Zoom meetings, they just have to go from the bedroom or the kitchen to the computer, wherever that is. So they don't have to take an hour out of their time just to travel to any location. So I think that's been the plus with the Zoom thing. At least we get to see each other. We know we're out there.
Zoom is very convenient. I just think when you're with a live group, you feed on that enthusiasm, that life force, that energy, and that really helps. Of course, we can't do a darn thing about that right now, but it is very. Can't think of the right adjective. It's more conducive to getting people more galvanized by them being in person. I mean, I Zoomed like crazy, when it was getting out the vote and getting people to register and telling my neighbors to get off their couch and go out and vote and do stuff like that and give them information based on League of Women Voters. I very handily sent all the information to any single person I ever met, saying, well, this is the information, vote how you want to vote, but please, please vote. So that's important. But I will do my best when we have live meetings to try to bring a few people. I have a few people in mind that I think would be agreeable to coming and possibly joining. I was very proud to be the 100th member of your group to join when I joined, I guess about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I don't know. So anyway, but like I said, it is convenient to do Zoom. It's a little time consuming, for people because it's, technology. Obviously I don't have, even though I bought this $800 computer, I had no clue it had no microphone or camera. And the one I had on the previous one didn't work. But we're all doing the best we can. But most of the people I know that are actively involved, whether it's in politics or environmental action, are more agreeable to meeting in person. So, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. This has been a year of hell for everybody. So it's hard. It's hard. All right. Anyway, I'm going to get off my podium and go back to you, lovely folks. It's wonderful to be here. And just remember, I do have an occupational therapist coming sometime around 11. So if I have to leave, I'll just send a chat. But anyway, I'm just glad to be here and see everybody. And back to the host.
Well, thank you, Lynn, for joining us today. We do have We do have one live event planned. August 26th, we'll have our equality. So we'll be back in action again in person. August is a long way away, though. Even our convention in June is going to be virtual. So but August, hopefully, we'll all be back again, together again.
And hopefully September monthly meetings will be back to in person in September.
But to put a plug in for the state convention, I had the joy of going with Beth and Joanne, what, 2 years ago or 4 years ago?
Got to be 4.
And it was a life-changing thing to be with all of those Florida leaguers. Not a one of them was shy and retiring, except me. And it was just a fantastic experience. And to be able to go virtually is something I'm looking forward to, because I couldn't leave my husband for that long again. But it's just a terrific grouping of people.
You come back
June,
really
June 4
energized.
And 5. Is that when it is? June
4
and 5.
June 5th. June 4 and 5. Mm-hmm. There'll be the registration material is still on its way. We don't have it quite yet.
Okay.
They're just getting the things out. They got the board, the nominating committee stuff came out a couple of weeks ago as to who's, you know, who's going to be taking over the different things. But
and one of our affiliate members is on the slate of officers to be elected. Sarah Rich from
for the nominating committee next time.
Yes, right. And she's kind enough to be very involved in Orange County and also to be an affiliate here. Plus, she has her own new bakery in Claremont.
Yeah, I found it interesting that it was written up of Sarah Rich of the Villages is how she, you know, it is her title was our league, not the Orange County League.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
But
and I figured that was a way to show the diversity of the slate instead of yet another Orange County member.
Right.
So
if anybody's down in Claremont and needs a sugar high on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, her bake shop looks really good.
Do you know where it is in Claremont?
I have to look it up. It's Sugar House Bake Shop. Karen, do you know where it is? It's in a strip mall somewhere. I can get it to you. Mary Kay, is that asked?
Yeah, I can look.
Yeah, Sugar House Bake Shop. She's got if you're on Facebook, she's got a Facebook page and she puts pictures of her cupcakes every week.
Sugar House Bake Shop?
In Claremont.
Okay.
I know it's in a strip mall. She opened it just like a week before the pandemic hit and everything closed.
And she takes her daughters to league conventions, the whole things. And now each daughter has learned how to do a bakery and manage it and do the cooking. She's about the best homeschooling mom I've ever seen.
They were at our league meeting once because in her spare time, she's a Girl Scout leader, and one of their citizen badges, they had to attend a civic organization. So on the Zoom call, her 2 daughters were at our league meeting. I think a few of you might remember that this fall.
Wow.
I can't remember what they were speaking about. Oh, Ellen, good to see you.
Yeah. Morning.
Oh, we got more and more coming in. Closer it gets to 10:30.
Still don't know who B is. Could B please identify?
B is Barbara Fieldman.
Excellent.
Nice to know.
I haven't.
Barbara, you could put your name in there, Barbara. It would be nice.
Yeah. I haven't seen our speaker pop in yet. We're just waiting for her, and then we'll begin.
And here she
is. She heard you come. She heard you say something.
Yes.
It's 10:30 and there we have a speaker. Life is good.
Hi, Melissa. Hi, you're on mute, so.
Sorry. Thank you. Nice to see you.
I'm going to make you a co-host so you can share the screen if you would like. And we can begin. If you all can go to speaker view and mute yourselves, unless you have something to say, then we will begin. I'm going to share my screen if it works. All right. Well, welcome to the League of Women Voters, Villages Tri-County, April General Meeting. I'm Mary Kay Rosinski. I'm your co-host, or your co-president, and I'll be hosting today because Gail Formanak won't be able to join us. I'm thrilled to be your co-president. I'm looking forward to lots of great times with you and doing lots of great things for our community. We have a fabulous speaker today. Her name is Melissa Nelson. She's a Florida state attorney. And I'm going to introduce her by saying a few words about what she has accomplished. In December 2020, the Department of Justice recognized State Attorney Melissa Nelson of the 4th Judicial Circuit for her office's outstanding support of Project Safe Neighborhoods Initiative. Public safety is the culmination of leadership, vision, and commitment to improving the quality of life in her community. And that is what U.S. Attorney Maria Chapa Lopez said about her. Melissa Nelson has achieved all three. Through a spirit of cooperation and public service, she has dedicated herself and her office to reducing crime by investing in people, proven methods and technologies, and imagining new possibilities. The success of Project Safe Neighborhoods in the Northeast Florida can be directly attributed to her ability to galvanize her office, critical agencies, and community partners around a common goal, creating safe communities. Let me see if I can get Melissa. Let's see, stop sharing. All right, Melissa, you are on.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's very nice to be with all of you. Thanks for getting on this morning to listen. I chatted earlier with Gail, and I found that in this world of Zoom, when I do presentations, they seem to be more effective rather than me just speak for some period of time to engage with you all and field questions. So I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about me and our office, what it is that I do professionally, and then a little bit about the PSN award and how our office was fortunate enough, I believe, to receive it. In fact, we didn't even appreciate that we'd been nominated, and we were really excited to hear that our office was honored with that prestigious award. So I obviously live here in Jacksonville, and the office where that I lead has 3 counties: Duval County, which is Jacksonville. North of us, where Amelia Island is Nassau County, and south of us is Clay County. And so we have 3 counties that make up our circuit. I was recently, maybe a year ago, giving a talk, and a man came up to me and said it was great to see me again, and he had met me at the Villages, and he had a picture of the 2 of us that was taken in the Villages at a campaign event at his house. And I assured him we had not met before, and I had not been to the Villages. And he was confusing me with the Attorney General, who is obviously Ashley Moody. So I get that frequently, but what I do is different than the Attorney General. And often people think I'm one of 21 elected state attorneys throughout the state of Florida. We're the equivalent, if you've come from different states, of district attorneys' offices. And lots of folks believe that we actually report to the Attorney General, but we don't. We're all independent, constitutionally elected officers. And really, my boss, as I explained, are the voters themselves. So I don't report to the governor, although he does have the power to remove me or any of my colleagues in certain narrow circumstances. I report only to our constituency, and that's the public. So I am charged, our office is charged, we have about 120 lawyers here and 300 staff, and we are charged with any violation of criminal law pursuing prosecution. And before we pursue prosecution, first making a decision about whether or not we can meet our standard of proof, which you all know is beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal courtroom. It's a much higher standard of proof than that which the police work under. The police make arrests based on a standard of probable cause. We make decisions about commencing cases and initiating formal prosecutions with a belief that we have what's called a probability of conviction. And so this charge ranges across 3 counties from misdemeanor offenses, driving under the influence, to homicides that qualify as capital first-degree murders, and everything in between. Public corruption, white-collar crime, crimes against children, crimes against vulnerable adults, crimes against elders, gangs, etc. So a vast range of the criminal code that we are responsible for prosecuting. And I came into office, I started here at this office after I graduated from the University of Florida in 1997. And I stayed here for 12 years. I did not intend to leave this job. I loved being a prosecutor, and I worked, I'm looking at my organizational chart, but I worked in every corner of the office when I was here. Got married and had all 3 of my children while I was working here. And then we had an election in 2008, and I stayed for about a year after that election. We had 2 of my former colleagues ran against one another, and obviously one won. But there was a complete shift in the culture of our office and the priorities of the office and the things that in criminal prosecution began to be valued and devalued. So I had the great pleasure before this election in 2008 to work for a state attorney who was here for 17 years. So there was a lot of stability, and there wasn't political fluctuation, which was excellent for us to do a job that I really believe should be apolitical. Frankly, even though my position is partisan, I mean, the race that I run in is partisan, I actually believe that this position and those of elected sheriffs should be nonpartisan, because we're obligated to follow the law regardless of party politics. So anyway, I worked for a man who enjoyed a lot of political stability, which flowed downward for the office. And so the campaign in 2008 itself, gave us a lot of anxiety, but then there was a complete, like I said, shift in priorities. At that time, I'd been a lawyer for 12 years and had the ability, I believed, I had a good frame of reference and sound judgment to make decisions. And we were stripped of the discretion that we'd previously had to make decisions. Everything was focused on trying more. In fact, there was a statement, try more, win more. I can't remember the third thing, but it was a focus on trying more cases, winning at all costs. And we were actually applauded for obtaining higher and longer prison sentences. We had historically, when we charge cases, we charge the highest charges that the evidence supports at the outset of a case. And that may require 5 criminal charges, 10, it depends. But when we negotiate cases, which the great majority of cases we resolve, work out, not through trial, not through jury trial, but through plea negotiations. When we work out cases, it's not uncommon that the government drop several of the charges in exchange for whatever it is we're seeking in terms of punishment. that practice ended. And the reason, unclear to us at the beginning, was because the office was seeking to increase our conviction statistics. So an example is if somebody was charged with 5 counts of theft, we may, and convictions on the same day don't get you any more time, we may plead that case for 1 count for whatever amount of time, either incarcerative or probation that we thought was appropriate, but that would on the books look like a 20% conviction rate. So we lost the discretion to negotiate in any meaningful way any longer. And we were required to make sure that if we charged something, we never, ever took a plea except on 100%. So the conviction rate for the office moved very quickly to close to 100%. We also were rewarded for trying more cases. And my favorite thing to do as a prosecutor, it's what brought me here really as a young law student, is to try a case in front of a jury. I love it. It's tremendously expensive. It's a significant suck on resources. And in some cases, it absolutely is necessary, but not in all. And so this idea that, and I took away when I returned the actual award or acknowledging people for trying the most amount of cases. What I wanted to get back to was doing the right thing in every case, which looks different depending on the case. And so anyway, I stayed for a year. I left. I went into private practice. I didn't have at the time, while I was really troubled by things going on, I didn't have a position in the office to influence or create change. And so I left to reinvent myself, went to a great firm who took a chance on me in 2009 when the economy was terrible, and went to work to become a commercial litigator. I didn't intend to do criminal defense work at all, and I didn't intend ever to run for a political office. And so while there, I had a chance, this was really serendipitous, to get involved in a case where I and other lawyers represented a young child who had been charged by this office for first-degree murder. And while the law has changed on potential penalty, he was 13 at the time. He was charged as an adult. He was not charged in juvenile court, and he was facing day for day the remainder of his life in prison. He was accused of having killed his younger brother. His mother was a co-defendant, so he was immediately taken out of his home. He was put in solitary confinement in our adult jail. And like I said, was then facing life in prison. So I found myself as an adversary of this office, which was really a very scary proposition for me. I was helping the public defender's office ghostwrite motions and giving them some thoughts, but I didn't want to be out front. And ultimately, one of the leaders in our legal group said, hey, we need to take over the defense of this case, and basically asked, are you in? And there I was. So it was not part of my life plan at all, one, to be a criminal defense attorney. And certainly it was not in my plan to be adverse to folks who I'd grown up with here essentially and been my former colleagues. But it was that experience that really was a pivotal moment for me in my legal career. I'd never had a client before. While I have teenagers now, I had very little, they were very young at the time, very little experience with teenagers, and certainly not teenage boys. And I had not been on that side of the courtroom, but that experience really opened my eyes to certainly a lot of things, not the least of which was the fact that I appreciated how much power I had as a prosecutor when I was a prosecutor, but I really didn't until I was on the other side of that power. And I realized I had no power. We were really, the power that we had in defending this young man came from the Constitution, which is an incredible, awesome tool available to us, but it came from our tools in litigation. But I didn't have obviously the same power that the prosecutors wielded in making decisions about what to charge, how to charge him, whether it was an adult court or not, where to house him in solitary or a juvenile commitment facility, and then ultimately how to negotiate the case. So I learned a lot, and in looking back on the journey that ended up ultimately landing me here, I think that particular case was of significant consequence. What it did is I naturally continued to watch the work of this office, all the while doing my own thing and trying to develop clients and create a path for myself in the firm. But I was, increasingly troubled by, for the same reasons that I left, by what I was seeing going on, and taking root in, this is true of where you are too. The state attorney's office is in Jacksonville, the largest law firm. So the majority of lawyers who come and join our office do not spend their whole careers here. That's a small percentage of the lawyers who come here. They go on to join firms, to become judges, both on the federal bench and the state bench. And so it was really imperative. The culture has to be one of the highest ethics and integrity, because those lawyers are going out in the world and going to have broad-ranging impact well beyond just this office. So ultimately, again, not according to my original life plan, I decided, again, very faced with a decision that was quite scary, decided to run for this position and jump in electoral politics, which was a very new experience. And that was in 2016. And we ran a very quick campaign. I think it was 4 months from start to finish, and we won. The decision to run was a very challenging decision, but once I made the decision to do it, I had great peace about it. And I say this frequently, while I sit in the position today that I have, it really was, the journey itself, the running for office that was, in my mind, what has been the most life-changing thing to me. Lots of good things have flowed from being able to lead this office now, but the main thing was actually going ahead and the journey of running. And so when I came back, my priorities, included coming back to, hitting reset and coming back to what I believed was important here. We have a mission statement that we developed since I've been here. And as a result of the mission statement, we also developed a tagline that is very simple. It says, "Pursue justice always." 3 words. It's on everybody's computer screens here. It is incorporated in our literature, and we're trying to imbue it in our culture here, that pursuing justice always, which may look very different in one case from the next, is our sole responsibility. It's not to send as many people as we can to prison. It's not to obtain as many convictions as we can. It's to do the right thing. Now, since being back here, I've not yet made a decision that's made everybody in the community happy. We make decisions every single day that sometimes disappoint victims. Sometimes they disappoint defendants. Sometimes they disappoint the community. But as long as we make our decisions according to that moral compass of doing what's right and are willing to show our work, how we got to the decision, then I really do believe, even though we can't make everybody happy, that if people begin, and that's been a priority of ours, to trust, if they have faith that we're making decisions for the right reasons and not the wrong ones, that even when they disagree with us, they'll at least have faith in the integrity of our decision-making. So in Jacksonville, we suffer from a really significant violent crime problem. And over the last year, it has increased, not unlike the urban cities across the country. And we have a gang problem, and our violence is concentrated in certain geographic areas in this city and a certain demographic. And so I have been really interested, and I don't know if I'll be successful before I leave here, in cracking that nut of why the violence. The violence is committed. The demographic is generally young African-American males between the ages of 16 and 24. And who grow up in very impoverished neighborhoods, who drop out of school, generally before 7th grade. And I'm really, really interested in, what we at the state attorney's office, what tools we have to contribute to maybe solving this problem. So that brings me to both the PSN award and there was a question about smart justice. So with the exception of, okay, I see there's a question and I'll come to that in just a second. I'll speak to this real quickly. So I've been focused on trying to address violence, and our tools at the state attorney's office are limited because historically we only get involved in a case after a bad thing has already happened. That's when we open our file. So somebody gets robbed, shot, hurt, murdered. Hopefully it's solved. And once it is solved, it comes to us to make a decision on what to do with the case. There's a whole group of crimes that occur that sadly are never solved and that we don't get involved in. So I've given a lot of thought to how can we use tools at our disposal to really have a meaningful impact on crime. And what I've found to be very significant is using the power that we have at this office to convene and to build consensus around issues. So I really have been intrigued by the use of technology in fighting violence. So we've done some really neat things here over the course of the last 4 years, establishing what's called a Crime Gun Intelligence Center here in our building, using technology, the combination of technologies called ShotSpotter and NIBIN to track crime guns and link shootings, which facilitate the gathering of intelligence. And then theoretically, and we're seeing this, hypothetically, the clearance and solving of crimes. But really, the thing that I am very proud about is when we've brought people together, it's been in the community to engage other people and other entities about how we together can fight this issue. So I'm the enforcement leg of a stool. But really, in my mind, the prevention and intervention aspects are, if not equally as important as enforcement, perhaps even more important. I want to know the 16-year-old who's pulling a gun and shooting somebody in the street. When did that boy decide to pick up a gun? What day in the life of that child did a kid decide to do this? I have 3 kids. I have a 15-year-old daughter who's driving me crazy. And I have two boys, 14 and 12. And so I look at them frequently and I'm like, it's so clear to me that they have opportunities and advantages that so many of the kids that we see coming through the system don't. I mean, the kids that we see coming through the system are going to sleep every night listening to gunfire. When I say gunfire, I mean gunfire that sounds like out of a war, because we get ShotSpotter on our phones and it's insane to listen to. And less than 20% of the gunfire in these neighborhoods is actually translating to calls for service. That means that 80% of the time, no one who hears it is picking up the phone to call 911. If I heard gunfire like that on my street in my neighborhood, every single person on my street would be blowing up 911. So children are growing up listening to this. I cannot imagine the traumatic effects to this, becoming apathetic to it, desensitized to it, whatever it may be. But I've been intrigued with what is that pivotal moment where kids change from little boys who want to play sports to carrying a gun with an extended magazine and the capacity to shoot over 100 bullets. Like, where is that moment in time? I haven't figured that out yet, but it's brought us to having a lot of discussions with our partners on the prevention and the intervention side. We've been very successful. There was a question about juvenile civil citation, using alternatives with kids before the bad thing happens. We know that once a kid enters the system, is arrested, spends his first night in jail, the chances of him recidivating are astronomical. if we can redirect that kid at that inflection moment where he comes in contact with the justice system for the first time, avoid arrest, hold him accountable, and sanction him in a way that does not involve the traditional court system, we also know that we will have better and do have better results with that. So to sum up, we've been very aggressive as it relates to violent crime, but we've also been very, very thoughtful and tried to be strategic about utilizing those things and opportunities that exist before we get to a question of enforcement and accountability in the criminal justice system. So that was longer than I expected to start on a talk, but that's who I am and that's why I'm here. And I know there are some questions. So Mary Kay, do you want to take them? Or you want me to?
You go ahead, Melissa.
Okay.
Go ahead. If you have a question, please type it in the chat box.
Okay.
And
so I'll answer this one first. Charlene Griffin has asked, what happened to the 13-year-old child? So Christian Fernandez is his name. And I'm happy to report that he is now in his 20s, living here in Jacksonville, working and going to school. That's not to say life is roses. He spent 7 years in a juvenile commitment facility. He was, ultimately, we were able to work the case out for a combination of both juvenile and adult sanctions. So he will is on probation and will remain on probation for the next several years. And it is, you know, one of my fervent prayers that he ultimately becomes a success story. So when he was down, he was in a facility down in Central Florida. I'll share this with you. You know, he was moved from the jail ultimately when the case was worked out to a juvenile commitment facility. And one of the lawyers on our team, his wife became Christian's guardian. And he was in a facility that was about a 3-hour drive from Jacksonville. And for 7 years, every single Saturday, with the exception of a handful of times, Mary Cox drove to his facility to spend 2 hours of visitation with him and got back in the car and drove 3 hours back to Jacksonville, which is quite amazing. So he's doing well. Am I involved in the cash bail process and what effect does that have on small misdemeanor cases? Great question. So bail reform, bail and bond reform is a topic of significant discussion across the United States right now. It has not, in fact, found its way to Florida, although it will. In fact, bail bondsmen are moving to Florida. In my mind, I mean, I think bail and bond should be determined by the law, and the rules are very clear that the question here is about small misdemeanor. We should hold people in pretrial detention if they are either a threat to the public safety. So if it's somebody dangerous who we believe has killed somebody, shot somebody, raped somebody, then pretrial detention is appropriate. Or if we believe they're a flight risk, if we think there's a reason to believe, and that would be based on their record, that they will not return to court. Those are the reasons that should give rise to pretrial detention. Those rules are not always followed. Our role at the state attorney's office as it relates to bail and bond depends. So we have, for example, 17 different misdemeanor divisions, and every single person who is arrested comes before, within 24 hours, a first appearance judge. Those judges, in addition to the 17, we have many, many more who are on the circuit bench. So every judge takes a weekend of first appearance and then a following week for the county court judges. And it depends on the judge. Some judges, very few, actually look to the prosecutor and ask us what we think about bail or bond. Most make their decision on their own. And each of them are different. Some of them really believe that people should be released on their own recognizance and practice that every day. And others do not. And so we have a role, it's really the court that makes the decisions about bail and bond. When we seek arrest warrants, however, we make recommendations to judges about what we think bond should be set at. We are the only jurisdiction. We engaged in a study a couple of years ago with the Vera Institute out of New York. And they did a study for us about how we were using our jail, our pretrial detention facility. And we learned through that study is we're one of very few jurisdictions in Florida that don't have a list of presumptive release offenses. And I hope we've started having conversations with some community partners that eventually we'll get there. And so by that, what I mean, here in Jacksonville, if you get a DUI, and a DUI, I use that example because lots of law-abiding, otherwise law-abiding, tax-paying, productive citizens are arrested for committing a DUI offense. That's a $5,000 bond automatically in Jacksonville. So somebody has to immediately post, if they can, $500. And that to me really makes no sense because the majority of these people have jobs, are going to come back to court, and the majority of them never offend again. And so in some jurisdictions that is on, DUI is just an example of an offense that's on what's called a presumptive list of offenses for release. So that's something where we are certainly talking about here. What is your opinion of the recent Supreme Court decision on life without parole for children? I just read a headline about this yesterday and I've not read the opinion. In Christian's case, I will tell you everything changed for him during the pendency of his case. So I mentioned at the outset of his case, he was facing day for day life for being accused of committing a first-degree murder. The Supreme Court, a series of cases during the tenure of his case changed that rule, where he could still be sentenced ultimately to a life sentence. It would be required that he would be entitled to a review hearing after a minimum of 25 years. So as part of that change in the law, we now have men who have been in the Florida state prison system for 40, 50, 60 years. Their cases are back before us because the Supreme Court has said they are entitled to a review of their sentence. That's been really laborious for us. In some cases, we're able to make a decision to release many of them. However, the most difficult have been the sex offenders and figuring out how to handle those cases. If someone poor gets arrested for a minor offense and cannot post bail, they're in the system, what's being done about this issue? That goes back to the bail and bond issue. And it's a real issue when people cannot post bond. The law says no one should be incarcerated because they're indigent. They should be held in pretrial detention for the reasons that I said. Either they're a flight risk and unlikely to return to court to face their charges, or they're a threat to public safety. What are some of the alternatives available to incarceration for youth? Great question. So one of the things that I did when I took office is I held a meeting and I convened everybody, all of our law enforcement partners, everybody in the juvenile justice system, the courts, and I said, let's talk about juvenile civil citation. So that's an example of an alternative. And what we knew is that juvenile civil citation, which is essentially, it's an alternative to arrest. So a police officer, when faced with a situation with a juvenile who's broken the law, he can arrest them or issue essentially what is a ticket. And in Duval County, we were not utilizing juvenile civil citation. It was because our office, the state attorney's office, objected to it. We didn't want law enforcement to use it. So I convened this meeting and I thought, my gosh, if this is a tool that law enforcement wants to use, why in the world would we be telling them their business? And why would we be being the obstacle to this, I had done a lot of research about the success of juvenile civil citation, and I'll share this with you. You know, when we, our rules in juvenile court are much faster. We have to make decisions more quickly. It makes sense, right? When we're holding kids, we should have to move more quickly. But still, quickly it can be a lifetime for a kid in the court system. The court system is bureaucratic, it is slow and clumsy. When my kid lies to me, I don't say, all right, get back with me in 6 months, bring your lawyer, and then we're going to talk about what your punishment's going to be. In order for it to be effective, it has to be swift, and it has to be right close in time to the offense. So what juvenile civil citation does is immediately, it circumvents the traditional court process, but the kids, if given a ticket, have to go to a restorative justice session with a neighborhood accountability review board, which I love. They're extremely effective. So if a kid has stolen a bike, he has to go in front of this board, which involves volunteers, people like yourself, and potentially the victim, whoever's bike was stolen, and held to account and make amends. The board renders the sanction. It's swifter. We hold kids accountable. We do a feedback loop, which we write the officer to tell the officer how the case resolves, because we think if an officer is willing to give the second chance, we want them to know if it's successful. And we have the kids write letters of thanks to the officers as well. And that feedback loop has been really successful. So when I came in, we were in Duval County utilizing juvenile civil citation in less than 40% of eligible cases. Last year's numbers, law enforcement is using it close to 90% right now. We are also tracking recidivism because we want to know if it's effective. And our definition of recidivism is very conservative. And so we're tracking, are these kids getting caught back up in the system? Some are, but the great majority are not. So that lends, to me, credibility in the power of juvenile civil citation. I'm distressed by the number of guns in this country. What would you support for sensible gun reform? So I firmly believe, based on my experience and what I see every day, reform is not going to prevent crime. When we make somebody a convicted felon, they're not allowed to possess a gun. And I should have run the numbers. I have thousands and thousands of cases pending right now of people who are convicted felons and possessing guns. And where do they get them? They get them illegally. Many of our homicides and many of our shootings are committed by people who are prohibited by law they can't walk into a place and buy a gun, but they still get them. Guns are absolutely ubiquitous. And I don't believe that that putting a law in place is going to directly impact that. Now, we do not have we have an RPOF system here, which we don't have a red flag system, but we have the ability to enjoin somebody who's not a convicted felon from obtaining firearms. And we can do that in cases that implicate mental health issues or danger. And so we utilize that routinely, but I'll give you an example. Last week, we tried a case of a young man who had, during this time last year, there had been a tent of people who were registering people to vote. They were Republicans and they had Trump signs. And they were in a Walmart parking lot. And he taped himself, saying how much he hated them, calling them idiots, and he drove his van through their tent. Two of the women had to jump out of the way of the van. We tried him last week, and the jury came back on lesser included offenses of criminal mischief and not of the aggravated assault. I wanted him very much to become a convicted felon because I was very concerned about, to me, when we look for clues, I thought this is someone who could be dangerous in other settings. But I also realized that even by making him a convicted felon, if he was intent to cause harm to people because of their political beliefs, what we achieved in court would not necessarily prevent him ever, in my mind, from doing that. If somebody, okay, let's see. I think I got to one new message. Reduce illegal gun sales. I am also, we're very focused on this. So one of the things that I wanted to do, I spent a summer, 2 summers ago, social media. When I left this office in 2009, we had gang organizations. We had shootings or murders that were being committed in retaliation. But what we didn't have that really shocked me when I returned is we didn't have social media when I left. And we didn't have YouTube. And we didn't have the ability, or these organizations didn't have the ability to immediately celebrate murder or threaten murder through a platform. So when I came back, I was shocked to see young men publicly posting these rap videos with really actually very creative lyrics where they were discussing murder, celebrating murders that they had committed, threatening get back murders for people associated with them who had been killed. And they would brandish these incredible weapons. Now, what they did in all these videos is they would put a disclaimer on the front of them that says, oh, these are fake guns. So I did a deep dive one summer. I watched as many of these as I could, put my, earphones in and listen to them. And then I used our gang experts to tell me to identify each of the kids. I think there's 14 men that are featured in a compilation of these videos that I put together. And all 14 of them, by the time I put this together, were either dead themselves of homicide or in prison for very serious offenses. So then I wondered, okay, is there a way in terms of guns, could we find out where these guns are coming from? Could we put them in front of the grand jury? The law enforcement partners I had said, look, nobody's going to come before the grand jury. They're going to say they got it from a kid down the street. So what we've been doing is, it's called proffering. So when we have somebody who has a charge that they're facing of possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, which is a second-degree felony, we give them the opportunity to proffer to us from where they got the gun. We're maintaining that information, and in exchange for, if we can corroborate what they tell us, for in exchange for consideration on their sentence. We've not found that we have a gun trafficking problem here in Jacksonville. Because they abound and they're so easy to get on the streets and to buy on Craigslist. So we constantly, law enforcement attempts to intervene on those purchases, but we have not broken into some organized effort here in Jacksonville to traffic guns. I will tell you that law enforcement, federal law enforcement, ATF, constantly monitors, because obviously some states are more strict than others, interstate communications on social media to find out who's selling to who. And we track every gun that we obtain in a traffic stop or an arrest or a prosecution. We trace and track those guns, where they were purchased. We know the original point of sale. And then frequently what we see is that that gun was stolen at some point in the life of that weapon. We have, last year in Jacksonville, we had over 600 firearms, and this is reported, stolen out of unlocked cars. That is a huge problem, that people are leaving guns in unlocked cars. And so that's where a lot of these young folks who get them, they're stealing them.
Melissa, just take one more question, please. We're running out of time, but thank you so much.
What can be, I ask, lots of interest about guns.
What about gun manufacturers are still absolved from any liability, that one?
Yes, so we do not, so again, I'll say this, the people who manufacture firearms, they're, at least I've not been presented in the 5 years that I've been here, the 12 years that I worked here. If we were ever presented with an illegal trafficking or illegal sales, we hold those entities accountable. But that is well beyond, you know, what I do here. There is no criminal violation for gun manufacturers. And if you're talking about civil liability, obviously we don't practice civil law here at all. In the state attorney's office.
All righty, I think we've about run out of time. I want to thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. You do so much for your community. What a job you have, I tell you. You're a very—
Thanks for having me.
Yes, we're very happy to have you here today.
Thank you.
And thank you for answering our questions, and go on and continue doing great things.
Thanks. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All righty. One second here. There we go.
Fabulous speaker.
She was wonderful. All righty, let's move on here for our meeting today.
Mary Kay.
Yes.
PBS is running a series on the elected attorney in Philadelphia. And the first one was last week, and Tuesday night, check your schedule. Absolutely fascinating.
Yes. Thank you, Karen. All righty, let's move on to some legislation. Just a little update on SB 90 and HB 7041. 90 is by Baxley and 7041 Rep. Ingolia. These are two really bad bills, and you've probably all heard about them. They just make it harder for citizens to vote. They have been amended and they've been pared down, and they're less draconian than they were, but they still have not been defeated. The bills as written still have minor impacts on voters. Instead of banning drop boxes and requiring IDs when dropping off ballots, senators instead have proposed nearly 24 smaller changes on how mail ballots will be requested or examined or reported, essentially dropping one set of bad ideas for another set of bad ideas. I have heard that 7041 still requires that if you're going to drop off a mail-in ballot at a drop box, you still have to have your ID. I don't know if they're going to have somebody standing there monitoring the drop box, but it's ridiculous because if you were going to mail your ballot, you just go to a mailbox and drop it in. So two bad bills, let's hope they go away. We had a near perfect election in Florida in 2020. The statewide turnout at 77% was as high as it's ever been in 65 years. And it's partly because 6 million Floridians signed up to vote by mail. There was no cheating, no fraud, or problems with voter rolls. So they're all validated and with careful audits and recounts. So why anybody is thinking we need to have voter reform is beyond me. So keep writing your letters to our senators and representatives, and maybe this bill will go away. Keep your fingers crossed. All right, now I'd like to talk a little bit about our Civic Survey Committee. Wonderful committee. We have a goal from our program. And so this committee was formed to conduct a survey on the status of civics education in the public schools in our Tri-County area. Jean Mee was our lead, Judy Bond, Linda Carpenter, Kim Fowler, Susan Gold, Karen West, Gail and myself were on the committee, and I want to thank everybody for their hard work. And I'm going to turn it over to Jean and see if I can find her, and she can tell us a little bit about Hang on, Jean, let me make you a co-host here. All right. Jean's going to give us a brief summary about all the good work that this committee has come up with in our report. So it took me a second to figure out how to unmute myself. Have I?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Mary Kay, thank you very much for including us on the agenda and further for helping me to distill the volumes of information that we gleaned from our inquiry to report today. So State Attorney Nelson said, guns are absolutely ubiquitous. And I'm here to tell you that we've concluded that civics is ubiquitous in its own way. Civic activity, civic responsibility, civic apathy. And so events often provoke the statement, that ought to be taught in school. And so looking into civics education in Florida schools in general and Tri-County schools in particular found its way onto our list of program goals at our March meeting. So in pursuit of that program goal, the committee was formed to conduct a survey on the status of civics education in public schools in the Tri-County area. And we agreed to seek answers to two questions. First, what does the state say must be taught? And second, how do they assess the acquisition of student outcomes pertaining to civics education? And we found that Florida High School, the Florida High School diploma requires a minimum of 24 credits. And among those 24 credits are a credit of US history, a credit of world history, a half credit of US government, and a half credit of economics. And all of these have civics related content. One asks what accountability is. And so we know that we kind of inherently teach all the time, but then we have to ask ourselves what was actually learned. So assessment is the answer to that question. How do we know what is actually learned? And assessment in education is typically conducted via Praxis 1 or a written test and or Praxis 2, which is an authentic performance of some kind. And Florida content standards for social studies and particularly civics call for a combination of both of these assessments, a written test and experiential literacy. So regarding assessment, civics literacy is one of only 3 written assessments at the end of courses in Florida high schools. Biology and history are the other 2. So the prominence or the profile of civics literacy in Florida school state standards is pretty high. In fact, the Florida college entrance requires at least a 60% performance on a civics literacy assessment examination. And the examination seems to be, since 2008, updated regularly as recently as 2019. The committee also found that the curriculum standards address how government works and how to be a responsible voter. And the broad interdisciplinary and experiential approach to social studies included many aspects of voter responsibility. So we concluded overall that the state curriculum guidance for civics seems pretty good. We found satisfactory indications that the schools in the Tri-County area all have content standards that meet or exceed state standards for social studies, including civics. Finally, the committee developed several recommendations. One, to develop a Be a Voter presentation that highlights the importance of voting that could be offered to high school civics classes at no cost. 2, that one of our league members, Carol Van Noy, who has developed a program that allows students to experience the importance of being an informed voter, be reached out to about the possibility of offering this program to schools. And finally, just a point of information, there is a wide range, I found it to be actually an amazing range of voter education programs that are being offered through the county election supervisors. And those can be accessed in a PDF list at myfloridaelections.com. It was a very impressive list, and I encourage everybody to go ahead in your spare moments and check that out. So in conclusion, I would like to thank Mary Kay for putting us on the agenda and for helping to distill the information, and in particular, the committee of Linda, Susan, Kim, Judy, Karen, and Mary Kay for your dedication and passion in pursuing this interesting topic.
Thank you, Jean. You did an incredible amount of work. It was amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. I agree. Everybody did a great amount of work, and Jean has prepared a wonderful.
Can I ask that we get, can I ask for the newsletter, if you could kind of summarize what you said? Either somebody, so I could put some information and maybe those links into the newsletter to let everybody know about it. So Jean and Mary Kay, could we get that together?
Sure, I'll be happy to. Jean has written a beautiful report summarizing all this with lots of details. We're going to take.
I can make a link of that, you know, with a summary, and then I can link that. If you'll send it to me, I can make it into a PDF, and we can link it on our website for everybody.
Yeah, we want the board, our board, to take a look at it first, and once they give us a thumbs up, we'll send that to you for linkage. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Jean, and thank you, everyone. Any questions for Jean or anybody? Okay, we'll move along here. Oops. I'm new to this. Okay, we have. You're doing a fabulous job, Mary Kay. So far, so good. Nothing's upside down. Last month, we had our annual meeting and we elected some directors. I'd like to just acknowledge our new directors and our new board. Our co-presidents are Gail Formanak and myself. Our vice president, Phil Graver, yay, Phil. Secretary, Shar Griffin. Treasurer, Bernadette Alley, and our board members, Dorothy Duncan, Barbara Fieldman, Kim Fowler, and Dee Melvin. Yahoo, great group of peoples. And we have some committee chairs, a few changes. Our budget committee is Diana Bishop. Communication remains Beth Hicks. Historian is Gail Formanak. Membership will continue to be Karen West. Nominating committee, Mary Schultz. Publicity, Janice Thorgan. Speakers Bureau Coordinator, Jeannie Hamilton. Voter Services remains Carol Van Noy, and our webmaster, Shar Griffin. Hardworking people, and thank you all for all your hard work for our league. Okay.
Mary Kay?
Yes,
We still have the showing on our screen today's speaker. It didn't come up with the list of everybody who are the new board members and officers.
Oh.
Well, the new board members and officers can be accessed on our website,
right,
by going to members only. And
she had that slide though in the PowerPoint. I think that's what she's trying to.
Yeah.
There it is. Do you see the equality slide now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, it's kind of frozen. Anyway, this is my last slide to share with you, just reminding you about equality. August 26th, it will be live, real people. It will be at the Rohan Recreation Center. We'll be joined by the Sisters of Suffrage group, and we'll have a screening of the PBS film, The Vote. We'll have a panel discussion and equality festivities, so don't miss it. August 26th. And then next month, our meeting will be May 24th. Our general meeting will be a Zoom meeting, and we will be screening the film Line in the Street. It's very interesting. It's on gerrymandering reform. So don't miss that one. You'll be getting a link from Beth soon. And June 4th and 5th, like I mentioned a little earlier, will be our state convention. That will also be virtual, and the agenda and signing up and registration materials will be forthcoming. So I just wanted to thank you all for bearing with me for my first meeting. Any questions or comments?
Mary Kay?
Yeah.
I just want to say, if you go to the members only leadership page of the website, you can see the photographs and bios of all the officers and committee chair, except for one. And that one person, please get the information to me. But the rest of you can learn about all of your board members, and I find it helpful.
All righty, well, everybody check, make sure. Is that one person me?
No, you're there, and you have a beautiful.
I thought I did it.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Any other?
This only took about a year to get it up. I mean, it was about last year we decided.
Well, I've been nagging people, so everybody but one is there.
Well, thank you, Shar. And any other comments or questions for the good of the league?
Barb asked, Barb Hillman asked about the time for the tea, and I just kind of jumped in and said, I think it's probably about 1, but it'll be determined and published.
1 or 2, I'm not sure. We'll have that information closer to the date. But we do have the room reserved, yay.
Yeah, and because I see that this meeting is recorded, is it then possible to pull out the recording of our speaker and put it on Facebook?
We're going to try our best to do that. I was thinking the same thing. So it's recorded somehow.
Oh, she was terrific.
It was awesome.
Yes,
Just
it was
marvelous.
Very good. We'll see what we can do, Karen.
Okay.
All right.
I have a question. I have a question. I finally put my picture up, but I've been hiding. Don't look at me. One thing about the civics education, do we deal with helping with the issue of social media misinformation? Because misinformation is a very big part of the problems we have, I think, politically now. I think it contributes to a lot of dissent. And young people, it seems to me, one of the things they need to do, I don't know if they're getting it elsewhere in their curriculum, but how to evaluate sources of information. I think it's important in the civics.
We have a great presentation. Jeannie, why don't you talk about that? Jeannie?
I'll let Shar talk to it since she helped create it. Our news,
fact from fiction.
It started with Gail Formanak, and I was the technical assistant and then added a few bits and pieces. But we have been giving that around the villages. I think it's something that we could offer to high schools as well.
Yes.
And we have presented, Gail has presented it at, I think, well, one of our last live meetings. So it's been over a year ago. But if anybody, wants to see that, I can send you a link. I think we have a link of the presentation.
It's excellent.
Yes, it is.
I've given it a couple times too, and there is so much fact in it that is just, almost your head explodes when you're done because of all the stuff that you learn in it.
But it's very visual. There's very little in the way of words on the slides. And I've done a lot when I put it together with photographs. And even I learned how to tell if a photograph you see in social media has been altered or not.
The best thing that I did when I did that once is I sent a handout. I did it by Zoom, and I sent the handout, emailed it first. And as I was doing it, I could see people taking notes on the handout because they could, it was, sometimes you don't, but this one, the handout is just so beneficial for that particular.
That handout is on the book, the speaker page, and it was designed, I designed it for note-taking.
And boy, it's used.
Yeah. And I think that's an excellent idea for the civics classes, because the greatest users of social media are the young, and they will identify with that. they will see that that's something that's meaningful to them. Whereas if you just talk about voting and they are not eligible to vote yet, you know, they might go to sleep or go into their daytime dreams or whatever. But that is something that they deal with, that they're on all the time.
And if we could get some young partners, some college or high school girls, you know, to put it on their social media, that kind of thing usually spreads like wildfire. So I don't know if we have any, we had some young college girls, right, that helped with the be a voter video. Maybe there's some other connections we could use. Because they read their social media, even if they don't pay attention in class, right?
Right. Exactly.
And I could tweak it to make it even more relevant to high schools if we really wanted to go into the high schools with it.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and I suggest that the high school media specialists have it, because that's one of their directives, is to teach social media. And
that's a good place to
teachers
start.
bring the kids to the media center, and the media specialist would get a big pat on the back for doing such a lovely job of teaching that.
That's a good idea, Karen.
Very good idea.
As a media specialist.
Very good idea.
Those used to be called librarians, right?
Used to be.
Mary Kay and Shar, you're writing this down so we remember all these good ideas.
No.
I've got it. I've got it. All right. Anything else, anybody? Hearing none.
It was an excellent meeting.
Well, thank you.
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Susan, did you have a comment?
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Just, I have a cold.
We're glad you're here.
All right.
All righty. Well, thank you all, and
bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Good meeting.
Well
done, Mary Kay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Kay.
Yeah. Can't wait to see you all live.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Can't wait. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.